welcome to the Twins Mummy and I podcast. I am mummy to 1-year-old twins Isla and Aria. Join us in our twin adventure as I explore a range of topics on parenthood. Hello everybody and welcome to the 27th episode of the Twins Mummy and I podcast. If you've just stumbled upon this podcast, my name is Carla and I work as a TV journalist, but now I am a stay-at-home mum to 1-year-old twin girls. If you're interested in topics such as perinatal mental health, maternal well-being, and what life is really like for a first-time twin mum, then this is the place for you. You are very welcome. You can also check out our twin adventure on Instagram at twinsmummyni. Do you ever worry? Or have you ever experienced feeling afraid in life, in motherhood? Well, if you're experiencing fears in motherhood, the one thing that I will say to you is that you are not alone. From my own personal experience and talking to lots of mums at baby classes and tots groups, feeling afraid or unsure of yourself in motherhood is a very common experience among many of us. So what can we do? Well, the first thing that helped me was talking to someone. I had a good chat with friends, some of the mums that I met at the baby classes, and I suppose what worry is for me. Worry is something that perhaps a certain situation might crop up, and I would think about it. But not only think about what's happening, think about all the different scenarios that could potentially happen. I would worry about how I would cope in the situation. Someone that I know introduced me to this wonderful tool that I try to implement in lots of different situations that might crop up in my life. She drew out a little diagram on a white A4 page. And on that page, she drew a picture of an eye. At the top of the eye, she wrote that in the situations where I feel worried, I overestimate the level of threat. And in the bottom half of the eyelid, she wrote that I underestimate my ability to cope. And I remember that afternoon whenever she introduced me to that particular tool. It really hit home for me. Of all the things that I worried about, whether I would be able to cope in the situation. What I've learned that with each scenario, I was 100% able to cope with that. In the run up to it, it certainly felt that I couldn't. Having come through different situations, I then learned that I could cope. So I'm trying to teach myself that if any other challenging situations crop up in life, that up until this point I've been able to cope. So why would it be any different going forward? Have you ever come across anything similar to that in your life? Another aspect that I would like to focus on is lacking confidence and self-belief in ourselves. And I wonder, does that resonate with you? Did you ever feel that you had a lack of self-belief? That and worry is something that I am very familiar with in life. You know, it's no secret that I have felt afraid of things in life. I have talked about it in the podcast in a very small way in previous episodes about my fear of pregnancy, my fear of childbirth as well. But I'm going to take you back right to the very beginning and share a very personal story with you. This is one of my earliest memories of whenever I encountered worry. Whenever I was 10 years old, I sat the 11 plus examination here in Northern Ireland. And for our listeners out there who aren't from Northern Ireland, the 11 plus is an exam that we sit to ascertain which school we will go to once we've completed our primary school education. And in my experience, there was quite a lot of pressure put on us to succeed in that exam. And in my heart, I was led to believe that whatever the result of this exam would set the narrative of the rest of your life. How wrong I was. Just this week here in Northern Ireland at the time of this recording, many children in many homes received their transfer test results. And each year when that date comes up, I always remember my own experience of that day. It was a February, and I remember camping outside my front door waiting for the postman to arrive. I remember wearing a bright orange Adidas jumper. And do you remember the old popper Adidas trousers that you used to wear years ago? I remember wearing a pair of those as well. Our postman was always quite late. He doesn't arrive in around about 11:30 in the morning. And I camped outside our front door waiting, anticipating his imminent arrival. And those hours felt like an absolute eternity. But at long last, I saw the little red van driving up our lane with this big letter. He reached it to me and I ran in through the front door into the kitchen, and I couldn't get the letter opened quickly enough. I can still see my mum standing to the right hand side of me waiting as I opened the letter. And all I could see was the letter D. I couldn't believe it. This letter D meant that I had failed the 11 plus. I should have been going up to my Irish dancing class that day, but instead I ran to my room and I cried and I cried and I cried. I couldn't get past this big letter D. I didn't know what the future would bring. To me, in that moment, my life was over. How wrong I was. I was absolutely heartbroken. I wasn't sure how to go forward from that moment. What would the future look like? I remember my principal lifted the phone and called each of the grammar schools in our local town and asked them would they consider allowing me to attend their school to receive an education. But sadly, every one of those grammar schools said no. I received a D in the 11 plus. It was a very lonely experience, a very isolating one. However, there was one school that did warmly welcome me, and that was St Patrick's Secondary School in Ballymena. And I am very thankful for the education that I did receive at that school. They warmly welcomed me through their doors, and I am so grateful to each of the teachers who worked with me very carefully as I studied for my GCSE exams. I then went on to achieve 8 GCSEs, 3 A-levels, an undergrad degree and a master's in journalism. And for the past 12 years, I have worked in the field of journalism. And when I think back on that day when I received that letter D, I was absolutely heartbroken. I did not know what the future would bring or how to go forward. I felt like such a failure. And what I would like to say, if there's anybody out there today listening to this podcast who perhaps knows somebody who has been in a similar situation, whether that is somebody who has failed an exam or perhaps didn't get the result that they had hoped to achieve. Or maybe you have been through different situations in life where you feel that you have failed and you don't know how to go forward. I am here to tell you that there is hope. Please do not listen to what others' opinions are. Blaze your own trail. This is your life and you only get one chance at it. Why not make it a worthwhile one? And I wanted to share that very personal story with you for one reason. To let you know that if you do feel afraid in life, or maybe you lack confidence and self belief, have faith in yourself. You've coped with everything that has come your way up until now. Why would the future be any different? This is your life, and you are the author of it. I shared that story with you just to give you an example of an experience that I had at a very young age of fear and worry. And I've also talked about my fears of pregnancy and childbirth in previous episodes of this podcast. Partly the reason why I felt so afraid of pregnancy and childbirth was that I had heard lots of stories, scary stories, that people told me about pregnancy and childbirth. Some were people's own experience or stories that they had heard from others. And whenever I heard each one of these really dramatic and graphic stories, I started to doubt my own ability whether I would be able to handle pregnancy or childbirth, particularly because I hadn't any experience of it before. It took me some time to really find the confidence within myself to go ahead and try for a little family and to get pregnant and to go through that childbirth experience. Had I listened to those stories and let them hold me back, I think it would have been the biggest regret of my life, because Isla and Aria would not be in the world today. And I am reminded of that fact every single day. How life would have been so different if I had let scary stories like that hold me back. If I had stayed stuck in that real feeling of fear and worry. Instead, I am so glad that I finally faced the fear. And Isla and Aria are here today to help me to share this story with you. Of all the things that I have worried about in life, not one of them has come true. Now, I know everybody has their own story to tell, and everybody's experience is unique to them. But I think it's important to be aware that there are positive stories out there as well. And I am very thankful that I did find the courage to push through that fear and to achieve my goal of having a little family of my very own. Talking about worry and fears, anxiety, or lacking in confidence and self-belief in yourself leads me to the current chapter of my life at the moment as a mum. Motherhood can feel like a life-changing transition. And with that can come the feeling of fear, or perhaps a lack of confidence in ourselves. And I would like to share with you, there's one thing that I feel that isn't talked about enough, is the fact that it can be a wonderful opportunity for growth. You know, there have been hard days, but there have also been happy days. And it is in both of those experiences that I have learned so much about myself and just how strong and resilient we really are. Something certainly that we never give ourselves enough credit for. And I would like to say to you today, if we paused, took a step back, and really looked at what we achieve each day in the quietness of our family homes, whether you're a mum like myself who has paused her career to take care of your children, or perhaps you're a parent who has returned to work, it's all the same. Whatever we are achieving each day, whilst it may seem small, like changing nappies, settling emotions, reading stories, whatever that may look like for you, it is momentous. It is helping to equip our children for whatever comes our way in life. Never underestimate that. Do you remember the day that you came home from the hospital with your baby or babies in our situation? I remember that day so very well. I felt that life was so different now. I had these two little babies to take care of, and I paused my career to be able to do that. And I hadn't one clue how in the world to take care of a baby, never mind two at the same time. I had to learn how to change nappies. I had to learn how to even make bottles or how much formula that the babies needed, how to bath a baby. I'll just be very honest with you. I was that naive that I didn't even know that you had to get up every 3 hours to feed and change babies. That was such a shock to me whenever I was in the hospital. I remember the midwife coming over to me and saying, right, time to feed these babies. And I thought to myself, well, sure, I've just done that. They're sleeping. They were like, oh no, you have to feed them every 3 hours. And this was the biggest shock to my system. I thought whenever you go to sleep, put the babies down the way you go, see you in the morning. How wrong I was. So that's just how naive I was. And it was a real baptism of fire in the beginning. But like anything in life, don't we learn just as we go? I'm certainly learning and plodding along every single day and hoping for the best. I certainly don't have it figured out. But do we really need to have everything figured out? I don't think so. I've noticed now, whenever I became a mum, my priorities have completely changed in life. A lot of people would have seen me as Carla, but now people see me as Carla, the twin mum. And sometimes that makes me a little bit sad. Because, yes, I am a mum and a mum of twins, but I think it would be lovely that people see me for who I am as well. I love my family and I love being a mum. Whenever I'm out and about and I meet other mums and dads, the first thing I'll always ask is, how are you? How are you doing? Have you ever felt that you're grieving your own identity since you've become a mum? People see me more now as a twin mum and less as Carla. Well, certainly that's how I feel. And whilst I love being a mum and I love Isla and Aria, I love having twins, I think sometimes it would be lovely for people to see me as Carla as well. Right, I think it's time for a little tea break. This is a big topic for me to be sharing with you because it's such a personal one. So I'm going to stick on the kettle, make a little cup of tea, and I will join you very shortly for the second half of this podcast episode. Great. Right, where were we? Yes, I suppose I would love to chat to you a little bit more about my experience of worry, in particular about the current chapter of my life, that as a mum. One thing that I tried to do to help with any anxieties or fears that I experienced in motherhood was talk to somebody. I worried about different things. I certainly worried as a child, around exam time, as I had mentioned earlier, or different little things that cropped up. But it's only really when I became a mum, I understood just how much worry that I would have in different things, and I've decided to do something about that. I decided to completely change my relationship with worry. If a challenging situation, for example, cropped up, I would think, gosh, how am I going to cope with this? What do I do? The what if thoughts, the catastrophic thoughts would spiral in my mind. But instead of reacting with worry and, oh, what if, and I can't cope with this, I am trying to change the narrative on that and know that I can cope. And how I'm doing that is, and it's not easy, it's certainly not easy, reminding myself of all the situations that I have experienced in life. Some of them certainly were challenging, and just trying to take the transferable skills that I used in each of those big challenging moments in life to teach myself that whatever comes our way in life, that I can and will cope. In the moment, it's not easy. And if anybody's experiencing anxiety, it's not a nice old feeling. It's not. Everybody's level of anxiety is completely different. And one thing that certainly helps me, if I can feel myself being anxious, I remind myself that I can and will cope with whatever comes our way. I don't have to have it all figured out. I focus on the things that I can control and I worry less about the things that are outside of my control. And some things that help me with anxiety are listening to nice music, playing solitaire, believe it or not, something as simple as that, especially when you're so exhausted. Using your brain can be difficult. Like I can't read. See if I'm, I feel nervous or afraid or anxious, reading doesn't work for me, and neither does meditation. I'm not a big meditation person. I can't sit in the one place. I'd be climbing the wall. I have to be doing something, but solitaire really shifts those old thoughts, helps me to recognise that they are there. Let the thoughts be there, but I am so focused on the task in hand, and all that is simply playing solitaire until those worry old feelings come down, and it always works for me. In the beginning, it maybe took a few hours, but now seconds, because I can understand what's happening. And I would encourage anybody out there, I am not a trained professional at all, by no means, but I can certainly talk from my own experience, what it's like and what I've done to learn to manage that. I remember whenever I attended my antenatal appointments at the Twin Clinic at Aunt Maria Maternity Unit, I used to hide in the corner because I was so nervous. And I brought a little colouring in book with me and I would pop in my headphones. And when I was waiting for my name to be called for my scan, I would just simply colour in and listen to music, and I could feel that fear just coming down, and was a lot more settled when it was time my name was called to attend my scan. So those are little things that work for me. Perhaps there's other things that might work for others. I'm trying to think from conversations that I've had with other mums, what have worked for them. Crocheting was something that worked for somebody, or even just getting out for a run. See, in the evenings when the babies were in bed, just getting out for a run or a gentle jog and just movement and getting out for fresh air. These are other things that certainly have worked for other people, but you know yourself what works best for you. But what I will say is, talking about your feelings is very important, and feeling afraid is very normal. It's a very human response. And let me tell you a little secret, you're not the only one who feels afraid. There are many of us out there who feel afraid for different things, a fear of failure, maybe experience a little bit of anxiety, whether it's in life or in motherhood. And I just want you to know that you are not alone with that feeling. I, for one, am one of those people. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. And I would encourage you, if you haven't already done so, seeking out some professional help. Perhaps that could be from your GP, it could be a counsellor, even talking to somebody that you trust, somebody that you can have a conversation with, and it'll be between yourselves, and that they will be there for you and that they have your best interests at heart. That could be a friend, a family member, or somebody that's important to you in your life. Another thing in motherhood I've noticed is about dealing with the change of priorities and life as our children grow up through each stage. My husband and I are in the trenches of navigating twin toddler stage at the moment. And with each stage comes different challenges. The girls are so active at the moment. They broke out of their playpen, they broke out of their bouncers, they broke out of their high chairs. And they don't want to be in the pram either for long periods of time. So that can be challenging in itself. So I've learned to adapt to their little ways. They're just children. They want to be out and about. They love the freedom. They love exploring the world. And I kind of have to let go and let them do it. We have got little leads lately, and I'm we've been out and about with them a couple of times, and I was so naive. I bought these grand leads for the girls thinking, oh, this will be great, and they'll walk alongside me. No. One ran one road, one ran the other, and I'm sure anybody in the shopping centre that saw us that day thought I was an idiot. But you know what? I learned from the experience and it was grand. So we go to the tots group and it's super. I try to bring the girls out in a wee lead now, and for confidence for them and equally confidence for me to get out and about with the lead. But it's been great. So far so good, and I'm hoping the more often that we use the leads, the more familiar the girls and I will get with them, because the thought of having to lug that old pram up and get it rigged up, get the girls under the pram, get the girls out of the pram, put the pram away and put it in the boot. It's nice just to not have to do that all the time as well. Oh, I hear a little noise here. Let me just go and investigate what's happening in this playpen. Right, I'm back again. I had to take a little bit of a break there. Isla and Aria's nappies needed change, so we've 2 nappy pies changed. I'm just looking at the clock. It's come to the afternoon time. You know that old afternoon slump where you can just feel a wee bit tired. The girls are just playing beside me here in the playpen. They know Mommy's recording a podcast, so we'll keep going with this until they get a wee bit unruly. We might have to go for a wee spin later. Yes, where was I? I was out at the tots group there and was just having a wee yarn with some of the mums there. Some of their children are applying to, is it preschool, the nursery stage now, these grant application forms that have to be in January. And we're just having a good old natter over a cup of tea about what life is like in their family homes. And one topic that came up that really got me thinking was the idea of comparing ourselves to others as mums. Some of the mums shared some stories with me that they were anxious as their children grew up about comparing themselves to other mums and their children, that such a child was maybe walking or crawling or reaching some development milestone that their child, who was of a similar age, wasn't doing yet. And they were worried about that. And that did cross my mind much earlier when Isla and Aria were growing up. Aria walked at 13 months and Isla walked at, I think it was around the 15, 16 month mark. And, because Aria was walking, I couldn't understand why Isla wasn't walking at the same time. They're twins. They were brought up the same way. Why are they not doing the same thing at the same time? And how wrong that was. Because Isla and Aria are 2 completely different individuals. And I was wrong there in expecting them to do everything at the same time. And I thought, gosh, is something wrong? Am I not doing enough here as a mum to support them in their physical development? And my mum, I remember, we're sitting in the conservatory one afternoon and she says to me, Carla, those girls will do things and reach their developmental milestones when they are ready, not when you're ready. And my goodness, my mum, she can really come out with some old clangers at times, but that really hit home for me. All the weeks of worrying about, whether something's wrong, am I not doing enough? My mum solved that in 10 seconds whenever she told me that. And lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, Isla started walking. Isla wasn't behind. Just because Aria walked at 13 months and Isla walked at 16 months did not mean that there was anything wrong or that I was doing anything wrong as a mum either. And for everything else that has happened since then, I've always remembered that piece of advice, and I wanted to share that advice if it was helpful to anybody else out there who are maybe going through that or experienced that themselves. Certainly, if you are worried or concerned about things, always lift the phone to your health visitor. And it's nice to be able to share things with other mums that we meet at our baby classes or tots groups or maybe in the school run as well. To have that little chat with other mums can be really reassuring. One piece of advice that I would say is don't compare yourself to others. Motherhood can be difficult enough. Parenthood can be difficult enough. Do not put any other unnecessary pressure on yourself and comparing yourself to others. I have been there. I have done that. And it is achieving nothing. It's very hard not to do. Of course it is. And not only did I compare myself to others in motherhood, I would have compared myself to others, maybe, for example, in my career. I was at a certain stage in my career, maybe somebody else with the same experience was a little bit further on. What was I doing wrong? Again, how wrong I was. Everybody's on their own unique journey. Motherhood is no different, and our children and their developments is unique to you and them. One thing I worried about now, certainly when the twins are at this toddler stage, was being out in public, and if the babies felt unsettled. One of the twins isn't, well, in fact, both of them now don't like being in the pram for long periods of time. And if they're ready to get out of the pram, they make it known to me that they are. So one thing that I've done now is when they are feeling like that, I would take them maybe, for example, to a wee soft play area in town. There's one in the shopping centre, it's free, and you know it's great because they can come in and the girls can run about to their heart's content. And then it's getting them back in the pram now. I've noticed lately can be a little bit more difficult, but it's actually not too bad. I would put them in, give them a wee drink of water, and away we go. And once the pram's moving, all is well in the world. But I used to worry about that. I was like, okay, well, like, what if I'm out and about? I want to stop into a coffee shop and have a cup of coffee, and one of the girls maybe crying because they're tired, or they just want out the pram and to run about. And like, what are others going to think of me? And now, a year and a half into motherhood, I am finding that I'm worrying less and less about what others think. That was not an overnight achievement by no means. But what I've learnt is if you're out and about and your children are unsettled, so be it. That's them expressing themselves and how they're really feeling in that moment. That's what their emotions are. Isn't it great that they have the ability to be able to do that? And to be able to say, Mum, Dad, you know, I need help here. I'm hungry. Can you help me? I'm tired. Can you help me? I'm fed up in this old pram. Can I just get out and run about to get a wee bit of freedom? And that's okay. Babies are babies. Toddlers are toddlers. If they cry, that's okay. And if people in public aren't happy with that, let them run on ahead. That does not make you a bad mum. That does not make you a bad dad. What is really happening in that situation is your child is telling you that they're not happy with something, or they would like a little bit of help with something. And they're speaking to their mum and dad or their caregiver, whoever's with them, to express their feelings. Let them do that. Certainly as adults, if we feel a certain way, if we're hungry, we do something about it. If we need to go to the toilet, we do something about it. If we're tired, we're going to say, imagine saying to ourselves as adults, oh, you can't say that you're tired, or you know, you can't say that you're hungry, or you can't say, do you know what, I'm having a difficult day here. You wouldn't dream of saying that to someone. If you really genuinely feel like that, say what's on your mind. And be okay with that. Why would it be any different for our children? Just because somebody walking past pulls a funny face or tuts at you or raises your eyes, let them. That's not on you. That's on them. That's how they feel. Let me be honest with you. Can I share a little secret? Now, this is just my experience and my thoughts. People's reactions is always about how they're really feeling. And it might be a reaction to a situation that you're in, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's about you. In fact, most of the time it's not. It's about how they're feeling and something that's maybe triggered them in their mind from their own experiences. So if strangers in public are reacting a certain way, if your child's kicking off, let them. That's on them. For goodness sake, do not waste any of your time worrying, and you do what you need to do in that moment to get by as a mum, as a dad, as a caregiver, and for your child. Please don't make the mistake that I did and worry if one of my children was crying, we're out and about, and somebody went past and they weren't happy with that. My child needs my help here, and I'm going to attend to them. And whether that's sitting in a coffee shop or in the comfort of my own home, I'm going to sort this situation out. What's the worst that could happen here? The child's crying. That's very normal. So I am learning now, and to have the confidence with that, being out and about. If my babies are unsettled, that's fine. I'm going to handle it. If anybody's around me that's not happy with that, that's on you. I suppose coming to the end of the podcast, some of the things that I could share with you that I have learnt. Even though there are difficult days in motherhood, you are still a good enough mum. Knowing in your heart that you can cope with everything that comes your way. Someone who I confided in one day said to me that, you know, Carla, if you feel afraid, that doesn't mean that you can't do something. She used to say to me, you know, you've coped with everything else that has come your way up until now, and that you can cope with everything else that does come your way in the future. I know that since I've become a mum that I have become much more resilient and adaptable. And we're all in that same boat. As mums, we are more resilient, more adaptable, and more courageous than we give ourselves credit for. We absolutely are. Just take a step back and think to yourself, when you're listening to this podcast today, what all have you achieved today? Or what all have you achieved in the past week? You might think to yourself, well, I've changed nappies, or I've put the children to bed, or maybe I've made lunches, or got school uniforms out, or they might appear small, but they are massive things. You are raising children in your own home, and that can come with certain challenges. The children are fed, the children have clean bums, the children are washed, and they're settled and hopefully going to sleep to get up to take on a brand new day. And that is massive. That is a massive achievement. So well done you for doing that. Keep going. One day, maybe even an hour at a time. And remember that a bad day does not equate to being a bad mum, nor does it equate to having a bad motherhood. Certainly, going back to the beginning where I worried about the transfer test, or worrying about pregnancy or childbirth, or different things that came up in motherhood. Of all the things that I worried about, not one of them has come true. Keep going and be proud of ourselves of how far we've come. When Ayla and Aria are older and they ask me what life is like when they were young and how we managed with twins, I think to myself, what am I going to tell them? And equally, if they have children of their own and they ask me for advice, what will I tell them? I would like to be able to teach Ayla and Aria that they can do anything that they put their mind to. If they hear scary stories about pregnancy or childbirth, or if they feel that they're not good enough, or that they are afraid of failing at different things in life, I hope from different situations that I have encountered in life that I can teach them that they can achieve anything that they put their mind to, and that their mummy loves them. Well, that's it for this week's episode, folks. I will join you next time for a chat on the Twins Mummy NI podcast. In the meantime, take care and remember there is always hope.